No, this was supposed to be like a cute, like natural, summery kind of makeup look, but I am incapable of staying away from the eyeliner. Today's style study was requested by a lovely subscriber, Coral Reeves. Thank you, Coral, for requesting this topic because I have learned so much through the process and I hope you love it as much as I do. Welcome back to another style study. If you're new here, hi, I'm Srish, and in this series we look at some of our favorite contemporary artists, their style of painting and what we can learn from it and apply to our own art. Again, as I mentioned on my last style study with Ross Draws, my focus is on learning from these artists, not copying their exact work. And today's artist is definitely the hardest one that I have studied so far. Today we're going to dive deep into the work of Shal.E. And I can honestly say that this particular style study has taught me way more about manipulating color and values and visual appeal than any of the other style studies I've ever done on this channel before. Just like with the last one, today's video also consists of 3 parts. In part 1, we are going to analyze the work and the style of Shal.E and see what we can gain from it. In part 2, I'm going to do a study of one of Shal.E's paintings. The reference I chose was this one. This is actually the part of the study where I actually cracked the key to Shal.E's painting style, so make sure you pay attention to the study portion. And finally, in part 3, we'll apply everything that we've learned in today's video to an original painting. Well, semi-original. Okay, it's not original at all, but you'll see what I mean. But with all of that said, let us now jump into our brand new style study featuring Shal.E.
Shal.E. God, I hope I've been saying it right this whole time. I'm just gonna say Shal, okay? Shal.E is a South Korean illustrator who lives in Seoul, is right-handed, and has a Pomeranian. Literally, that's all we know. Look, I scoured the internet, okay? I'm talking advanced searches, multiple rabbit holes, hours spent furiously Googling. There is nothing. Shal.E is apparently excellent at keeping their identity a mystery from the internet. And yes, I said their identity because there is zero information about whether they identify as male, female, or any other gender, so I'm just going to refer to them as a they. Cool? Cool. The most I can find online is that Shal.E's first art post on their Pixab page is from 2015. But given how stunning that painting is, I'm gonna guess they began painting a lot earlier than 2015. Oh, and the other thing we know is they had short hair at one point, but again, that doesn't really tell us much. But what we do have a lot of is their art. Shal.E has been pretty regular about sharing new, stunning art quite often, as well as speed painting videos here on YouTube. And boy, is there an abundance of lessons to learn from it all. On the surface, Shal.E's art is very high quality, semi-realistic portraits with a slight manga look. As with Wang Ling and Sakimi-chan's art, this is obviously extremely popular around the art community and has brought Shal.E over 450,000 subscribers on YouTube alone. And as with most character and portrait artists, Shal.E mostly draws female characters, but on the occasion they do draw guys, these guys usually have very soft, youthful features as opposed to the stereotypical hard planes and edginess that we generally associate with male characters. Now, Now, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know your girl loves lists. So let's look at 3 major characteristics that most, if not all, of Shal.E's paintings tend to have. So, as I'm writing this video, I'm looking through my notes and, well, most portraits seem to have puffy eyes, darkness around the lashes, and a lost expression. Okay, these young ladies look sleep deprived, okay? Don't come at me for saying that, you know it's true. And a lot of the times they are looking directly at the camera, which is extremely impactful when trying to get your attention as a viewer. So why do they look so tired, and why is that a style choice that Shal.E has made? Here's my best guess. The proportions of the facial features are very reminiscent of manhwa, which is the Korean equivalent to Japanese manga. Now, I know very little about manga, but based on what I could find online, there is a visible difference between Japanese manga and Korean manhwa. While the Japanese style is more impressionistic with strong, almost caricaturized features, Korean manhwa is softer and rounder, and the proportions are a little closer to realistic human features, at least when compared to Japanese manga. Essentially, manhwa is almost a middle ground between realism and the exaggerated manga proportions. Why is this relevant to us? Because while Shal.E's characters are definitely way more believable than most other manga styles, there is still a subtle exaggeration of some features and minimization of others. For instance, the eyes are obviously larger than realistic eyes in a real human face, while the nose is smaller. If you've watched my Ross Draws video, you know that this gives the face a baby-like appearance. But specifically in Shal.E's paintings, while the lips are usually glossy, they aren't overly plump or exaggerated. In my opinion, this actually makes the youthfulness a lot more believable than overtly pouty lips do, but that's just me. So how does the tiredness tie in? It's pretty simple actually. If you saw a toddler who looked sleep deprived or as if they've been crying, 9 times out of 10 you would want to nurture them or maybe even help them find their parent. By emulating this look in their paintings, Shal.E achieves the effect of making you want to love and care for these characters. Plus, in many of their paintings you'll see this very PC, stringy hair. This is subtle, but it almost resembles how wet hair tends to form clumps, right? Now, why would their hair be wet and stringy? Possibly because they've been out in the cold rain. Doesn't that make you want to bring them in and shelter them and make them safe? Genius! So, a lot of semi-realistic fantasy artists tend to love exaggerating the sensuality of their characters. Sakimi-chan comes to mind. If you didn't know this, Sakimi-chan was the very first artist I covered on my Style Studies series, before I even thought it would be a series. But if you look at her work, you'll notice the extreme voluptuousness of her characters. Another big hint would be her extremely NSFW Patreon. But our girl Sakimi-chan loves sex appeal, and we love her for it. But with Shal.E's work, you'll notice that the opposite is true. There is very little to no use of sensuality or excessively suggestive elements to their art. Most of their characters don't have nearly enough skin showing for it to be considered sexy. And that to me speaks volumes. You see, Shal.E's brand is very unique in that even where their characters are scantily clad, which is very rare, the focus is more on their innocent, childlike face. There are no strong curves or deep cleavages or even a suggestive facial expression. Between this noticeable lack of sexualization and that sleep-deprived look, it is safe to say that Shal.E aims more to make you feel protective and nurturing rather than attracted and turned on. Alright, so now that we have the story out of the way, let's look at some of the painting techniques that are characteristic to Shal.E's style. First, obviously, we know that Shal.E likes to proportion the face in a style that is reminiscent of Korean manhwa. This means big, almond-shaped eyes, a relatively small nose, though not nearly as tiny as a lot of manga/semi-realistic art that's out there, and a soft jaw with a slightly pointy chin. And like with most semi-realistic art, unless flaws are relevant to the character's story, the skin is generally smooth and flawless. Apart from the dark circles, that is. Speaking of, let's look a little closer at the eyes. While they are rendered in a fairly realistic way, the iris is generally a light tone, often a greenish grey. The eyelids are rendered to be puffy but also have a solid crease. But the big key here is the under eye area. You see, while in popular Western art we generally tend to keep the under eye area bright and flat, Shal.E actually does the opposite. They render it to be dark and baggy. And we already know why, because we looked at it earlier. The nose is small but fully rendered, and unlike Ross draws, Shal.E actually does give these characters a nose bridge. If we look at the lips, we notice that they have this double-toned appearance, which is actually something I've seen in a lot of Korean makeup tutorials. The center of the lips are heavily pigmented and smooth, while the outer rim of both lips is relatively paler, usually the same color as the skin, and slightly textured with the specular highlights. This gives the lips a sort of just bitten look, which adds to the whole timid, youthful storyline. But the biggest takeaway from Shal.E's rendering is that there are no hard shadows on the skin. Hell, the only place on the face where you would see actual dark tones is in the pupil and the eyelashes. There are no dark shadows on the actual skin itself. All shadows are usually just a dark flesh tone or an orange. If we're lucky, we might see a slight drop shadow under the jaw, but that's about it. Another thing you'll notice is that there are no specular highlights on the skin. I know I keep referring to the last style study with Ross draws, but this is a huge difference that I noticed. Shal.E's characters, although they have soft, flawless skin, they don't have that specular, high shine, wet look. In other words, the lighting is very flat and it enhances the matte appearance of natural skin as opposed to the highly dewy, highlighted look of a more grown-up character who might wear makeup. But the trickiest part of it all is that the skin has this glow from within look, which, by the way, was actually a huge game changer for me. I'll show you how to achieve this look in the study portion of this video, so again, make sure you're watching closely. But to sum up the analysis portion of this video, Shal.E's style can be summed up into these 4 points. Korean manhwa proportions, softer than Japanese manga. Tired puffy eyes and stringy hair. Flawless skin with flat lighting and very soft shadows. And an angelic lit from within glow, but no specular highlights. Before we dive into part 2, I want to give a quick shout out to my Patreon page where I'm going to be sharing most of my new art from this point on. As my patrons, not only do you get early access to every one of these videos, you also get to download the art from each video, including this one, and even wallpapers and printable versions that you can have on your PC or your phone or even up in your room. Plus, I share some cool fan art and behind the scenes posts, as well as Patreon only paintings from my own personal art collection. Your support would mean the whole world to me, and it helps me keep making all this fun content for you. So check out patreon.com/SrishCreates, link is in the description. Alright, back to your regularly scheduled video. So for this week's study, I picked a fairly simple one of Shal.E's paintings, which is aptly named Girl. One of the first things I noticed about this reference was that there were very few hard edges, and they were created by color and value shifts as opposed to actual brush strokes. In fact, particularly in the skin, I noticed that there were no visible brush strokes. Essentially, you simply don't see the hand of the artist. And in this case, that is exactly the signature style here. All of the shading is very soft, very flawless, and you'll also notice that relative to most other art styles, Shal.E uses very low contrast in their work. What this means is that there are very few 100% black or 100% white spots. Everything lies between a very dark grey and a very pale flesh tone, and there are pretty much no extreme values on either end of the value scale. This again enhances the softness of the rendering. But here's the major secret that hopefully I've done a good job of demonstrating here, and that is the overpainting layer. So normally, when you're painting skin, you start by assigning dark and light values and then smoothing out the in-between mid-range values, which softens the skin up, right? But Shal.E takes this another step further. You see, once they've laid down the basic colors, they then create a new layer on top, pick a general highlight color from the existing palette that they've painted, and softly airbrush it on top, almost like a very soft, blurry mask. There is no special blending mode or specific brush or smudge tool you need to use, literally just a soft round airbrush and a highlight color from what you've already painted. You do want to keep the opacity slightly low though, so that the underlying values and tonal shifts show through a little bit, but this overpainting layer has an effect of smoothing everything out on the surface without it looking too plasticky. And this is what gives us that angelic baby soft skin look. While you still have life in the skin thanks to the original painting you did below, this extra translucent layer on top creates a very soft overlay that gives that lit from within glow that you see on Shal.E's portraits. That's the big key here. So here's the study I ended up with, which I would say has come pretty close to Shal.E's original painting. Okay, so for the last part, I wanted to focus on taking an already familiar character and kind of Shal.E-fying it. And I don't know about you, but there are 3 things that I personally will never get over in this life. First was what happened at graduation, if you know, you know. Second was Jenna Marbles doing this, whatever this is. And third is the death of our Lord and Savior, Gamora. And there is only one of these 3 things that I'm capable of painting, so here's the scene I've chosen as a reference. I did go ahead and paint the background off camera because, well, your girl struggled. But here's me painting Gamora in the style of Shal.E, using everything that we've learned so far. Now, because Gamora is literally green, things were a little different, but you'll see that I did the overpainting trick using a pale teal color, and that instantly changes the entire face. Guys, this is the only way I will ever be painting skin ever again. Sorry, these are just the new rules. I did go ahead and artify this painting even more, and the more artsy finished version of this painting will be available to my patrons this Fan Art Friday. So if you haven't yet, make sure you go check out my Patreon. Link is in the description. Enjoy.
And there we have it, Shal.E demystified. Thanks again to Coral Reeves for requesting this topic and for being patient enough while I put this together, because let's face it, it took me a while to put this together. But I did learn a lot from this study, so thank you, Coral, and I do hope you enjoyed this. And if you guys all enjoyed this video too, then please remember to leave me a big thumbs up and hit that subscribe button down below so you don't miss the next one, because you know there's going to be more of this. And the notification bell if you're into that kind of thing, so it tells you when I upload the next style study. Comment below if there are any artists that you want me to cover, and I will be more than happy for us to dive deep into it together. Click somewhere around here to check out my style study playlist and look at all the other videos in this series. But with all of that said, I thank you so much for watching. I hope you've had fun hanging out with me. I know this has been a long one, so thank you for sticking this far. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye!